Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss X-Men Dark Phoenix, starring James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, Nicholas Hoult, Sophie Turner, Ty Sheridan, Alexandra Shipp, Evan Peters, Cody Smith-McPhee, and Jessica Chastain, and directed by Simon Kinberg. Now, was I excited about this movie? Maybe, but in a mixture kind of way. But what do I think of it then? Since I saw the movie twice, well, let's get into it. A young Jean Grey is in a car with her parents, and the parents are just rude to her until she crashes the car on a truck, and the effects look absolutely horrendous when the glass doesn't hit Jean, and that made no sense whatsoever. Charles Xavier, returned by James McAvoy, wants to take Jean in to help her control her powers, and I thought, why? I mean, I get why, but it makes no sense. A lot of things in this film makes no sense. We catch up on the year 1992, where Professor X gets a call from the President of the United States of America to save the astronauts, and that mission, led by Raven, returned by Jennifer Lawrence, aka Mystique, and Hank McCoy, aka Beast, returned by Nicholas Hoult, lead the X-Men into space with Scott Summers, returned by Ty Sheridan, Storm, returned by Alexandra Shipp, Peter, aka Quicksilver, returned by Evan Peters, Kurt, returned by Cody Smith-McPhee, and Jean Grey, returned by Sophie Turner, going to space to save the astronauts until Jean gets covered by the cosmetic storm to become the Phoenix. And the score by Hans Zimmer really needs to go. It's super distracting to me, and it's loud. And this whole movie is loud anyway, so what's the point of having that score in the first place? We get introduced to Jessica Chastain's character, who has dinner with some people as she goes outside to check on the dog Luna and gets killed and morphed by an alien race that looks like trees. I swear to God, they look like trees. And she touches a man who I think is married to her and kills him, which makes no sense to me. Then she becomes a character named Vux, which is way too convenient. Jean has a meltdown while at a party and becomes the Dark Phoenix, and that scene is acted very poorly by Sophie Turner. And it's a shame. Everyone's acting is awful here, and much worse than Apocalypse, might I add. Jean goes back to her house to see her father is alive, and she realizes Charles and her father lied to her about her father wanting her, and the X-Men come in and they try to stop the Phoenix, and Mystique comes in and talks to Jean, and then she kills Raven, and that was very predictable because the trailer showed it without telling it to me. And it told me based on that moment in the trailer, and that kind of pissed me off. This script is one hell of a mess. Eric Lenscher, returned by Michael Fassbender, leads an island of mutants as Jean comes to him for help, and Fassbender dumbed his performance down. And I really like him as an actor, but this is the worst performance by Fassbender. And I'm not counting this movie that I couldn't finish to this day. Jean is at the bar disguised as an old man, which I found clever, and Vux finds her and she recruits Jean to become the powerful being that she is. And Hank is pissed to the point he wants revenge for killing Raven, on Jean I should say, and teams with Eric, and Vux takes Jean to her headquarters to control her power, and that was the point I had to look at the time and thought, how much more is there? Because I've had enough at this point. Charles, Scott, Kurt, and Storm go to New York to get Jean back and fight Eric, Hank, and a couple of other mutants who I never get the names of, and fight them for Jean's sakes. And Eric wants to kill Jean, but Charles thinks he can save her, and that's when I'm checking out of this movie. because it's noisy and it bothers me so damn badly. Jean betrays Vux because she remembers what Charles told her at the beginning of the movie, and she realizes he would never kill her. Then Vux takes her power, and Vux becomes the dark, powerful being Jean was, and the army take all the mutants from the battle. It was very staged. It looked so bad, and as for Chastain's wig, it was rather fake looking, I must say. The mutants are on a train, and Vux comes into a very loud action climax, and her headquarters come in to attack and take Jean, which is quite a headache for me. And the mutants fight these aliens were too loud for a bloated movie. I can't take anymore. Jean fights Vux from powerful being to powerful being, and they both die, and I was waiting for this movie to be over. Then they changed the school's name from Xavier School to Jean's Grey School, and that was never earned for me. This movie is truly let's get to it. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 1.2 out of 10. This is the worst X-Men movie ever. The score was distracting, it was predictable, and the performances were dumbed down after Apocalypse, and I can't recommend this to anyone whatsoever because this is a loud, bloated way to end the series on. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for the X-Men series, and until whenever New Mutants comes out, let's stick to the X.